All right, for number 37 on the review, Aaron Judge hit his longest home run on June 12th, and it went 496 feet. Bryce Harper's home run went 467 feet. And then they give us the function. So Bryce Harper, Aaron Judge. Whose ball reached a greater vertical height? Show the work to support your answer. So if I want to find the highest point of the ball, how do we find a highest point or a maximum height? So hopefully you're thinking to yourself, well, that's the vertex. So if I find the vertex of each of these equations, that will tell me which ball went higher. So for Aaron Judge, so I'll just put AJ for Aaron Judge, and I'll use blue. The vertex, to find it, since it's in standard form, first I'm going to find the x value or the axis of symmetry by doing the negative b divided by 2a thing. So negative b is 160, so negative 160 divided by 2 times a is negative 16, so 2 times negative 16. I'd get negative 160 divided by negative 32, which is positive 5. So the x value, if the axis of symmetry is x equals 5, the x value of the vertex is 5. If I know an x value, to get the y value, I plug in 5 into x. So I'll do that down here. So in this case, instead of x and y, it's h and t. So h is going to equal negative 16 times 5 squared plus 160 times 5 plus 4. So 5 squared, so I remember exponents come first in order of operations. So 5 squared is 25. 160 times 5 is 800. And then negative 16 times 25 would be negative 400. Plus 800 plus 4. So when you combine all those like terms, we end up with 404. So Aaron Judge's home run at its highest point was 404 feet. And I guess I should write this on the vertex. So that's the number we care about. That's the height. Now to do Bryce Harper's, to find the vertex again, so this is BH, Bryce Harper, in pink. I'm going to do negative b divided by 2a to find the axis of symmetry. So negative b, so b is 128, so negative 128 divided by 2a, so 2 times negative 16. So that'd be negative 128 divided by negative 32. And that would be positive 4. Paper keeps slipping here. So I know if the axis of symmetry is x equals 4, the vertex x value has to be 4. And again, to figure out the y value, I use the equation. So h equals negative 16 times 4 squared plus 128 times 4 plus 4. So first, in order of operations, are exponents, so 4 squared is 16. 128 times 4 is 512. Negative 16 times positive 16 is negative 256. So when you combine all those, you should end up with 260 feet. So Bryce Harper's highest point was 260 feet. So if I compare, Aaron Judge's definitely went higher. So if they're asking me whose ball reached a greater vertical height, it would be Aaron Judge. And you can kind of write a little sentence to explain that, but I'm just gonna tell you the answer is Aaron Judge. Okay, so moving on to part B. If I was able to, or if the ball was able to travel until it hit the ground, how long would the ball be in the air? So in the two equations, they give us h for height and then t for time. So if I want to find out how long the ball will be in the air, that means I need to solve for t. But if the ball's landing on the ground, then what will the height of the ball be? Hopefully you're saying 0. So the height is 0 when the ball hits the ground. So that means I will plug in 0 for h. So for, let's use dark blue. So for Aaron Judge, h is 0, so 0 will equal negative 16t squared plus 160t plus 4. So from this point, we need to solve for t. So this is where we could use a couple different methods. I am going to use the quadratic formula as much as I don't want to. So x is going to equal negative b. Let me label my a, b, and c. So from this point, I'm going to plug in all my stuff into the quadratic formula. So negative b, so negative 160 plus or minus the square root of b squared, so 160 all squared, minus 4 times a times c. All divided by 2 times a. So this is your quadratic formula. From this point, you just need to simplify everything. So x will equal negative 160 plus or minus 160 squared. So that will be 25600. And then it's going to end up being plus because we have a negative times a positive. So it'll end up being plus 256. Hopefully I'm doing all these calculations correctly. And it's divided by negative 32. So negative 160 plus or minus the square root of 2, 5, 8, 5, 6 divided by negative 32. So let's see if this will reduce. Or you could just put it as a decimal. So square root of 2, 5, 8, 5, 6. I got 1, so x equals negative 160 plus or minus, I got about 160.798. So from this point we can break it up, sorry you can't see that, you can break it up into two equations. So I have negative 60 plus 160.798. And then x equals negative 160 minus, oh, this is divided by negative 32. Negative 160 minus 160.798 divided by negative 32. So I know this is not going to be my answer because when I do this, I get really close to 0. So if I think about this problem, because negative 160 plus 160, it's going to be about 0. And the ball cannot travel in the air for a certain amount of time and land at 0 seconds. So I'm just not going to use this one, because in a real world problem, you kind of have to think about what makes sense and what doesn't. So this one down here, I'll get negative 160 minus 160. So I'll get about, actually I'll get negative 320.798 divided by negative 32. So let me get the official answer on my calculator, but it's going to be x equals 32 point, and does it say to round? You can just round to the nearest whole number, so you could just say 32. So it'll be 32 seconds. So then you'll do the same thing for Bryce Harper's. On part C. So it's the same thing, you just plug in different numbers and you should get a lower number.